Hi everyone, my name is Barry Bonavio, and thank you for coming to my final presentation. So today we're just going to be talking about a few different strategies that I've learned throughout this class that I think would be very helpful for me in my future teachers and very helpful for some other people that might be interested in learning these. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is my background. So over the last 2 years, I've worked as a long-term substitute teacher for Collinsville Area School District. I've been in special ed biology last year and then special ed algebra this year. So I've had a lot of experience in pretty different fields with some pretty challenging tasks, I guess. Considering I don't have a special ed degree, I've just been an emergency substitute over the last couple of years. So I've been thrown into a couple of situations that I don't really have all the training for that I've had to kind of make it through. So my students, like I said, as a special ed teacher, I have a lot of students who might be at-risk learners. One of the scenarios that comes to mind, we have a student this year who I'm not going to name, obviously, um, who came from a homeschooling type of situation this year. So he'd never been in public school before. And this student really struggles with a lot of work. He struggles with reading, comprehension, the math that we do. But because he came from homeschooling, he has no IEP, and we haven't been able to get him one set up yet. We're still working on that. So without the IEP, it's really hard for all the different teachers to communicate and try and help him out with all the stuff that he might need. And we have many other situations like this also where some of the students just struggle with work and we have to find ways around it. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the recommendations and practices to help your students. Like I said, these are some of the ones that I've learned throughout this class and just ones that I really look forward to implementing in my future. I also forgot to mention I'm working towards my BCIT, so the Business Computers Information Technology. So I might throw in a couple things here and there about how I plan on implementing those in the future in those classes, as opposed to the algebra or biology that I've learned the last couple years. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is effective word problem instruction. This was one that I thought was really helpful for a lot of my students this year in my algebra classes. So this article talked a lot about attack strategies, and these were just different ways to go at word problems, really, how to look at them and just get through them. So the 7 steps are read, paraphrase, visualize, hypothesize, estimate, compute, and check. So just each of these steps really has their own meaning. Read is just go through, read the problem the first time. Paraphrase is just kind of put the problem in your own words. Visualize, kind of see the problem work out. Sometimes it might help if you use watermelons or pineapples or apples or anything like that as kind of a visualization tool to help you work through them as opposed to just numbers. Okay. Hypothesize. This is where you kind of guess what might happen in the problem. You don't really solve it yet. You're just kind of thinking, okay, I see these numbers. This is what's happening. Maybe this is how it's going to work out. Estimate's kind of the same thing, really. You're not really solving it yet. You're really just putting a guess, a more educated guess, as opposed to the last step as to what you think is going to happen. So next is compute. This is where you're actually going to do the math. Everything that you've been working on up to this point, getting the problem down, understanding what's happening, now you're going to work on that. And then check is just making sure you got it right. Okay, barriers and limitations. So in this step, this barriers and limitations to this is that there's many steps and a lot of reading. Like I said, special ed for me, a lot of my students struggle with these, so that could be a big issue when it comes to solving these. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is rock out the rubric. This is something that I feel like I might use more in my future with assignments as opposed to in math classes right now. So really, this is just a way to use rubrics and help students understand them. The rock method is read out the text, observe what needs attention, commit to make a change, and know what is expected. Now, the articles that I've read about this go a lot more in depth as opposed to just this slideshow going over the basics of it. But giving students the knowledge about how to use a rubric can make it a lot less stressful for them to work out the problems. Okay, the steps to learning rock. This is another thing that I thought was really good about the article. It went in and how to really give the students the knowledge about how to use this. So the first thing is activate background knowledge. This is pretty much all about what you've learned about the topic. Discuss the ROC strategy. So this is kind of where the students learn what ROC is, the steps that we talked about before. Model the ROC strategy. This is pretty much where you just give them a paper, let them look at it, understand it, show them how it works out in different problems, memorize the ROC. This is the part where the students really have to learn it for themselves. Support the ROC. This is where they would use the information they know and help put it together on their own, and then independently use it. Like always, this is our main goal, get the students to learn it and understand it so they can use it on their own. Barriers and limitation. Comprehension, reading, and interest are my main three with this one. Comprehension and reading are kind of in the same boat. There's a lot of reading, a lot of things to understand whenever it comes to this, and a lot of students struggle with that. They might need more help than others, so it might take more time to get them. And then interest, this is a big thing I faced this year. Pretty much any topic we work on, there's just not much interest. A lot of students just always want to ask me why they're ever going to need this in life. So it's always a struggle to get them interested in it and following along with what we're doing. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is family support with homework. Supporting families to motivate their middle school student during homework time. That's the title of the article I did this on. I thought it was a very helpful article and could be very useful for students who have a lot of homework. So this one really talked about steps for success. Identify the model behaviors. This is where you just kind of look at what the student's doing, whether it's good or bad. Use these to create a self-monitoring checklist. So the checklist is really just a way to follow along, make sure they're doing the steps that they need to finish the work. Identify homework rewards. This is really just rewarding them for following the checklist like they need to be. Identify motivating language and actions. This is ways that you can get them motivated to work, whether it's positive reinforcement or just going up and giving a student a high five if they're doing the work they need to be doing. Finalize the plan with students, and then monitor for effectiveness. These are kind of straightforward. You're just going over it with the student, making sure they know what's expected of them, and then monitoring to make sure what you want to happen is happening. Barriers for this one would be parent availability and parent involvement. I live in a pretty low-income area where there's a lot of different types of issues with families, really. Some parents are single parents. They work 2 jobs to keep their kids in school, fed, everything. So they could have a tough time making time to help their students with their homework and keep them on task with all the steps that need to be involved with this one. Same thing with parent involvement. Some parents just struggle to be involved with their kids' lives. They might not be in the day-to-day stuff as much as they want to and not have the time to really work through their homework with them. Suggestions for future research. The first one I want to talk about is technology, implementation and strategy. Right now, technology is a big topic when it comes to this. It's very broad, but one of the biggest issues I face is with AI and ChatGPT, PhotoMath, all that kind of stuff, because students know that they can use it to get their work, their answers, show the work and everything, so they don't really want to learn what it is. They just want to use this to figure out the answers so they can get credit. So I would like to see some strategies about how to use this as a tool and not just have to try and fight it off. Okay, the next suggestion for research is remote learning for secondary grade levels. This is something that was a big deal during COVID. I feel like it's not as big now, but it could become bigger in the future, I feel. I would just like to see some of the better strategies for teaching during remote learning or some type of event like that. During college, I feel like a lot of my teachers use different strategies, and I would just be interested to see what some of the better strategies are. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Thank you for coming and listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to talk to anybody about any of this, or if you have any similar theories about some of the stuff I talked about that you think you could add on to this, I'd love to hear them. Once again, thank you.